You have to be highly qualified to earn a head coaching job in the NFL. But it doesn't always seem that way, especially when you consider some of the mind-boggling calls these guys made throughout the course of the regular season. Whether it was bad clock management, failed trick plays, or aggressive calls that backfired, there was no shortage of brutal coaching blunders from the NFL ranks in 2020. So, here are 10 of the worst. Number 10. Kliff Kingsbury's aggressive fourth down call. A win for the Arizona Cardinals against the banged-up San Francisco 49ers in Week 16 would have put them that much closer to a playoff spot. The 49ers were playing without several key starters, and they were forced to start a third-string quarterback in CJ Beathard. What should have been a not-so-difficult victory for the Cardinals turned out to be, well, a difficult loss. Robert Saleh's 49ers stymied Kyler Murray and Arizona's high-flying offense throughout the ordeal, forcing an impatient Kliff Kingsbury to make several aggressive calls, including going for it on fourth down 6 times. Although Murray and the Cardinals struggled to get much going, the defense at least kept San Fran's offense at bay. So you'd like to think Kingsbury would have a little bit of faith in the D. Trailing by 2 points, Arizona faced a 4th and 2 situation from their own 35 with only 9 minutes to go. The smart bet would have been to punt and trust your D to give the ball back to Murray. But Kingsbury wouldn't have any of that, and it came back to bite him. The 49ers took advantage of the short field and extended their lead to 8. They managed to hold off an Arizona comeback and escaped with a 20-12 victory. For Kingsbury, going for it on fourth down in his own territory against one of the league's best defenses on a day where his offense was struggling considerably turned out to be a very costly decision. Number 9. Bill Belichick doesn't challenge obvious first down. The New England Patriots were trailing the Denver Broncos 18-3 in the fourth quarter of their Week 6 contest at Gillette Stadium. Cam Newton and the Pats offense couldn't get much of anything going, and the last thing they needed was a questionable officiating call, followed by a curious refusal to challenge the play from Bill Belichick. Facing a 3rd and 3 at their own 15-yard line, the Pats called a running play to James White, who clearly picked up the first down. The officials somehow ruled him short of the marker. Replay showed White was clearly beyond the spot for a first, and yet with 3 timeouts remaining and down by 15 points, Belichick decided not to challenge the ruling, which would have been easily overturned. So the Patriots punted the ball away, and the Broncos melted some more precious clock before pulling away with an 18-12 victory. Belichick's decision not to challenge that spot really cost New England an opportunity to come back. Number 8. Matt Rhule doesn't want to melt the clock? The Carolina Panthers were leading the Minnesota Vikings by 3 points with just over 2 minutes remaining in their Week 12 showdown. The game appeared to be over. However, the Panthers recovered a muff punt inside the Vikings' 10-yard line with just 2 minutes and 10 seconds remaining. The Vikings stopped the Panthers on the first 2 plays of the drive, but they were out of timeouts with 1 minute and 56 seconds to go. So the smart call for Carolina would have been to run the ball and kick the field goal, forcing Minnie to have to score a touchdown with only a minute remaining. But head coach Matt Rhule curiously called for a passing play to try and put the game away. Teddy Bridgewater missed an open DJ Moore in the end zone, which stopped the clock. Carolina kicked the field goal, but now Kirk Cousins had a very manageable minute 51 to work with. The Vikings, of course, drove down the field, and it ended with Cousins finding an open Chad Beebe in the end zone for 6. Van Bailey booted the game-winning extra point to help the Vikings pull off the improbable win. Rhule's aggressive play call saved Minnie 40-something seconds, and Cousins and company made them pay for it. Number 7. Mike Vrabel says no thanks to challenge. After falling behind 19-0 to the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field in Week 16, the Tennessee Titans rallied for 14 unanswered points to cut the deficit to 5. Their momentum quickly evaporated, however, when Packers running back Aaron Jones pulled off a 59-yard run to the Tennessee 7-yard line to set up 1st and goal. Replays quickly showed, however, that Jones stepped out of bounds at the Tennessee 43-yard line. Mike Vrabel should have challenged the call, which would have moved Green Bay way back and well out of the red zone. The Packers would take advantage of the favorable spot and score a touchdown to increase their lead to 12, and they held down the fort the rest of the way for a 40-14 victory. Tennessee lost all of its momentum after that Jones run, but if Vrabel had challenged, it could have totally changed the direction of the game. Number 6. John Gruden plays it safe and costs the Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders were some good clock management and one simple play call away from upsetting the Miami Dolphins in Week 16. All they needed to do was basic math and play the odds. Trailing by a point, the Raiders faced a 3rd and goal at the Miami 1 with 1 minute and 5 seconds to go. Seeing how awful their defense had been all year, the smart call would have been to score the touchdown and force Ryan Fitzpatrick to drive the length of the field with no timeouts. Instead, the Raiders took the clock down to 23 seconds with Daniel Carlson booting the go-ahead field goal. But because it's the Raiders defense, you knew they were going to blow this entirely. Sure enough, John Gruden's decision to play it safe backfired. The Raiders' horrendous defense allowed Miami to easily get into field goal range and kick the game winner. You could see this coming from a mile away. Number 5, Anthony Lynn, How to Not Clock Manage Part 1. The only reason this blunder isn't higher on our list is because the Los Angeles Chargers wound up winning the game. You got lucky here, Mr. Lynn. The Chargers exemplified horrendous clock management several times throughout the 2020 season, which social media had a field day with. It's hard to find many worse cases than what they did in their Week 14 home tilt against the Atlanta Falcons. The Chargers were out of timeouts with just 22 seconds remaining in the first half, facing a 3rd and 1 at the Atlanta 8. For whatever reason, Lynn called for the Chargers to run it up the middle, but they were stuffed, so facing 4th down, they had to rush the field goal unit out onto the field quickly. But with no time left on the clock, the Chargers snapped the ball before they could properly get set. They were flagged on the play, and by Rhule, there was a 10-second runoff and the half was over. At least they went on to win 20-17 in a game where both teams tried to outdo the other for the loss. Number 4, Mike McCarthy's fake punt call. After he was fired by the Green Bay Packers, Mike McCarthy took a year off to take a further dive into the analytics aspect of football. He wanted to be better prepared for the modern era of offensive play calls in his next coaching gig. And in his first year with the Dallas Cowboys, McCarthy was noticeably more aggressive when it came to play calling, especially on 4th downs. Still, there are some instances where you just gotta make the safe and logical call. The Cowboys, trailing the Washington football team by 4 points in the 4th quarter of their Week 12 Thanksgiving game, lined up for a punt from their 24-yard line. But McCarthy called for what he thought would be a clever fake. Too bad Washington was all over it. Dude, if you're going to go for it, maybe just keep your star-studded offense out on the field and trust them to get their first down over your special teams group. Washington took advantage of the short field and scored on an Antonio Gibson touchdown 1 play later to put the game away. Number 3, Vic Fangio, who needs timeouts anyways? Sometimes a coach just has to accept that his defense won't come up with a lucky break or turnover. Protect your offense by using your timeouts and giving them enough time to win. Play by the assumption that the opponent is going to score. The Denver Broncos were leading the Tennessee Titans by 1 point with less than 2 minutes to go in their Week 1 Monday Nighter. But as Tennessee advanced further and further into Broncos territory, it was becoming evident that they were going to get at least a go-ahead field goal. But Broncos head coach Vic Fangio decided not to use any of his 3 timeouts, even when the Titans got a fresh set of downs inside the Denver 20 with less than 90 seconds to go. And so, the Titans just kept melting the clock until Stephen Gostkowski booted the game-winning 25-yarder with 17 seconds left. The Broncos had all 3 of their timeouts, but those mean very little when you have 17 seconds to work with. What did Fangio think? That Derrick Henry of all guys would fumble? That Gostkowski would miss a chip shot? Awful clock management. And it cost Denver a season-opening victory. Number 2. Anthony Lynn, How to Not Clock Manage Part 2. If you thought the Chargers' clock management at the end of the first half against Atlanta was bad, well, it somehow wasn't the worst clock management moment of Anthony Lynn's 2020 season. The Chargers needed a miracle to erase a 10-point deficit against the Buffalo Bills in Week 12 with less than a minute to go. Justin Herbert threw a Hail Mary on 4th and 27 that was somehow caught by Tyron Johnson to keep the game going. But the Chargers took their sweet, precious time getting ready, even though they needed 2 scores. Instead of spiking it and maybe just taking the field goal, the Chargers kept trying to pound it in the end zone. The Bills stopped them twice, and on the third and final play with just 3 seconds remaining, Justin Herbert was stuffed on a QB sneak. Had the Chargers hustled to the line following Tyron Johnson's catch and spiked the ball, then ran a couple of passing plays, they would have still had time left on the clock to kick a field goal to make it a one-score game, then go for the onside kick. Instead, they ran the ball twice in the next 3 plays, got stuffed each time, and ended up losing 27-17. Classic Chargers. What can we say? Number 1. Adam Gase lets Gregg Williams call the zero blitz. The New York Jets were just seconds away from upsetting the Las Vegas Raiders in Week 13 for their first win in a miserable season. All they had to do was defend against a Hail Mary. Victory was in the bag. The Raiders needed a touchdown with no timeouts remaining at the Jets' 46-yard line. For whatever reason, Adam Gase let defensive coordinator Gregg Williams call out the zero blitz with no deep safety. And because it's the Jets, well, the worst thing that could possibly happen actually did happen. Williams was fired after the game, although Gase is just as responsible for letting him call that play. Only the Jets. What a disaster. But hey, what other NFL coaching blunders from 2020 should we have included on our list? Join us in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.